So one thing I wanted to look at is the Hootsuite article in terms of the 10 useful tips for marketing within business. And I enjoyed reading some of these because I think that they're very influential in terms of what you should be doing on Twitter. Now, as you could probably tell if you're following on Twitter, I'm pretty active on there. Oh, let me actually back up 1 second. Um, I do want everybody to take the journal article readings that we did and provide them on Twitter. So that means using the hashtag of this class and starting up a discussion on Twitter. Somebody emailed me about participation on Twitter. There really hasn't been any, and that's fine for now, but especially for this chapter, I want you to take those two journal articles and post on Twitter using the hashtag. You can tag me in it, or you don't have to. But let's talk about it. Let's use some examples and let's start the discussion on Twitter. I'd like to do that for this particular assignment. Again, that'll give you some areas of participation within Twitter because I know that's a lot to keep up with. So you don't have to ignore Facebook, but I know everybody that's where they've been posting. But today this week I would focus on Twitter. So make sure that you're doing that. Okay, so within the top 10 useful Twitter marketing attempts, there's a couple that I want to focus on in this case that deals with a lot of things that we've been mentioning as far as some general good best practices for social media. And one of them looks into using your Twitter tools. Part of some of those Twitter tools does look a little bit about generating leads. What people are following. You can actually look at specific hashtags that you and your following looks at. So naturally, of everything that I post, a lot of what I post, if you've been viewing everything, if you're following me, is about video games. So most of my followers view that because they attend video game conferences and so forth. The number one following thing on Twitter for that, I think it's the number one hashtag right now, is either food or dogs. Dogs actually have an extremely high presence on Twitter, hashtag dogs, that you can find out where you have things in common. And that's an interesting facet in terms of analyzing your audience and understanding them, as well as your competition. Search engine optimization and use of hashtags really play hand in hand in terms of what people are using and what people are not using. So as far as media share is concerned, you can probably just get as much about what words aren't being used by your competitors and what they are using. And then, you could potentially look into, do I want to compete with the words that are being mentioned, or do I want to use something different? The choice is yours in this case. I'll talk a lot about using multimedia, which is key. And that's going to be a major consideration. I'll get into that here in a minute. But they talk about the profile. And profiles are important because, again, they are the area of which you define yourself by. And so, I tried to define myself as best I can within an academic market. And I'd encourage you, if you're doing something, think about what you do specifically, because a lot of what we look at within these markets are niche-related markets that you do one thing very, very well. And that's a good thing for finding followers, as you get those things in common. The next talks about a little bit about listening, and that is one of the 4 steps in terms of our marketing. I like this step in particular because this does get into a little bit of our monitoring and then evaluation and bringing new things in. And so listening in this case, understanding what hashtags are being used, because using the wrong hashtag can really make a huge dent in terms of your brand's reputation. But also looking in terms of making sure that your posts are truly edited, making sure that you've got your brand name in just about everything. I've actually got one colleague that I work with quite a bit, and he's probably one of the best social media advertisers for his university. He tags his university in everything. that he posts, and it's a good representation for how he gets his institution out there, as well as some buzzwords, keywords that the university uses. So many organizations, including universities, will have their kind of big idea slogan for how they want to define it, and you can look very easily on in terms of watch a college football game and see the university's slogan. That you will have a big idea for the particular university that you work for, and then use that as a hashtag. It's very important to get that put out there so that everybody can see it, everybody can read it, and everybody's on the same page with each other. Other things are terms of coming up with content. And this is something that I struggle with in terms of how do you create good content. And a lot of it is keeping things short and succinct, keeping things to a challenge. So asking your audience something instead of, hey, look at what cool thing I'm doing. Because doing cool things is obviously a good thing to do in social media, although a lot of people in this class would probably argue it's very self-serving, and I probably couldn't disagree with you there. However, I mean, I still do it, in terms of making my presence known. But the one things that come out, and I noticed on my Twitter analytics recently, is that the biggest impact that I get is asking people questions. So we did a panel a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, and one of the things I found interesting was it was my highest tweets with the most impressions was the one where I was asking the audience of something while they were there, and it was incredible to work in Twitter in this capacity because I had never had a tweet do what it did that day. And it was a good idea that somebody asked me not only to use the hashtag of hashtag PAX East in this case, but to ask a question to the audience. And it was, very much what character in a video game did you have has the biggest impact in terms of the relationship. And you might have this with like television characters, or somebody wrote in the comments on Facebook, and I love that they did this, several people or fictional characters, they mentioned Uncle Sam being a huge influence in World War II. And I thought that was a great example talking about parasocial relationships, and so did said person. And I love that this was posted. This was so incredible to talk about this in terms of how these fictional or non-fictional characters can actually play more of a role than some of the people in our real lives. And so anyway, I posted that tweet, and I was moderating a panel throughout this and trying to pay attention to what everybody was saying while simultaneously trying to bring up examples as transitions, and my Twitter was blowing up. And I'm not doing this to brag. I'm just saying that this was the kind of thing that I've been missing in terms of how to use this, is implementing what's called transmedia, which means in this case I was using public speaking and Twitter. And this actually gets into a publication that we wrote once upon a time of using social media in the classroom and how a lot of people hate using social media in the classroom. But in this particular case, it actually, our contention was, we always tell people to use good public speaking. Why not integrate social media in with face-to-face interaction so that we're not displacing it, we're incorporating it together. And in this case, let's say that you've got a sales meeting, for instance, being able to hone in how people are using social media for good. And what I mean by that is, let's say that they're tweeting, or let's say that they're playing on their phone in a game. Make the phone part of the activity. Make the phone part of the demonstration. Make the phone part of the sales pitch. And you can gain a lot of followers that way. And again, this was just one panel, but it was amazing how much was rolling in terms of the conversation. And more so, my colleague said, why not tweet them and say, if you're shy and you don't have questions, or you have questions and you don't want to come to the microphone, ask us there. And we got tons. I mean, you can go on my social media account and see them of what was said. And I love this part about it. I just think it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able, especially if you're an introvert, you're shy about talking to people. This might be a good tool for people in this case. And some people do live tweets. Now, this maybe seem a little bit more in the crazy side of things within using social media, but using live tweets as they come in can actually be a big benefit as well of understanding things as they go along. You might want to look in terms of video, images. GIFs are huge in Twitter by using Twitter, and you can see these all over the place. Anything visual comes into a long way. Visual representation instead of using words sometimes has a much greater impact, mainly because of our eye contact that rolls through. So when we are viewing eye contact and social media, everybody notices pictures or videos or GIFs or GIFs, however you want to say it. But they have that much more, they have a bigger staying power than just regular text. There's also a function within Twitter, and you'll see in number 6 in terms of posts at the right time. You don't want a dead site with Twitter, especially if you've got a lot of followers. That's where bots can come in. But posting at the right time, you can actually see when people are reading your post. And so this is an option on Facebook as well, to where for Barks and Brews, everybody was posting or reading at 8 o'clock at night. So that's a good time to look at it because you know your audience is going to pay attention in this case. However, your article says generally noon, 5, and 6. Now, I usually post in the morning because that's when I have time. However, this is something to bring into when your audience are coming out the most. However, you can also schedule your tweets. So this is really nice. Give me 1 second here. Sorry, talking enough, that's what happens. Scheduling your tweets, in this case, you can plan it out for the entire month and then have a contingency for when you're going to post next based on the audience that you're promoting to, which is really nice. And then engaging with your audience. It's always nice to follow other people that are highly engaged in your audience, talking with people. It's a nice feeling when people have strong replies, quick replies, when people like and follow and retweet. It feels good when that happens. And then this is my favorite. It says, ask for a little help. We do that all the time, and we do it within our studies as well. And this is the cool thing about it. We would have never had this opportunity to get some of this information without the help of people paying attention on social media. And we got such a diverse group of people coming in to talk about being a streamer and what are their chat rooms are like and so forth. And being able to let your audience participate is huge in any social media, but Twitter is especially in terms of how it looks in this case. So this is what I'm going to do right after I'm done, is I'm going to use that hashtag for the communication class and see what y'all have to say. So we'll look into that as we go along. And a lot of these will look in terms of Twitter analytics, which again, I want to post a couple images of what those look like in terms of your impressions that you get, your audiences, your events that occur, and how much those mean in terms of when people are looking at certain things here. It's also nice to host a Twitter chat, and I'm going to see if I can do this one. See what happens in that regard. I think that'll be a good project to do, and again, get some of that opportunity for us to participate here. So, so Twitter is one of these social media sites that I think has a lot of potential in terms of what's being used, and I really encourage you to think about how it's used and read those articles, because I think they're very strong in terms of understanding the little bit of the marketing side a little bit better. And I know some of y'all have discussed it, so I hope you continue to do so. I'll post more about this tomorrow and see what we can talk about on Twitter. Other than that, if you got any questions, let me know. And I hope you have a great night, and I'll probably talk to you tomorrow morning. All right.